Good morning to everybody, and thank you for joining us today. So that's us. So if I may, I just for clarity explain what Eneraqua is at a glance, really. So we're a specialist company that helps clients basically on the journey to decarbonisation and net zero. And the second side of it is in terms of water and neutrality, sustainability, and becoming generally more water efficient. We work in the countries as shown there, but we're predominantly right now UK based. And we design efficient district heating or ground source heat pump or air source heat pump systems for blocks of flats, leisure centres, schools, and hospitals as well. And on the water side, using our patented technologies, we install products in people's homes, schools, again, hospitals, because we use the products right through everything we do. And again, this is about saving water, really. What do our products do? Well, they save about 80 litres of water per person per household per day, which is about 20-25% of people's consumption. So it's a really big benefit. And in terms of tons of carbon saved, since we started, we've saved about 1.5 million tons of carbon for our clients. In terms of revenues, we're predominantly public sector, an 80-20 split, as you can see there. And on the right-hand side, you can see some of the clients, some of the people that we work for. One name which people may not be aware of is H10. So that's H10 Hotels in Spain. So if you've read our owners, you've seen that actually in the first half of this year, it was a pretty tough year. We're expecting to come back into profit in H2. So we're expecting to be in loss in H1, but the loss was slightly greater than expected because of the unexpected election timing. You know, when the Prime Minister called it for in May, I think it took everybody by surprise, including, I suspect, his own party in some ways as well, reading the news articles. The issue that had it on us was it's at that time a lot of our public sector clients basically give the approvals for work to go ahead and press the button. And essentially they had to stop because legally they're not allowed to go and trigger new works or sign new contracts that might have a bearing or impact on the election process. And subsequently, with the new government coming in, there's a lot of noise about the budget and in terms of, the financial situation. And at the same time, Labour launched a planning consultation as part of that drive about building 1.5 million new homes. And the consultation was fine in terms of what we do, which is unlocking water and nutrient neutrality issues. But because it wasn't very clear, again, it made some of our clients hesitate. Thankfully, that position has started to ease since the beginning of September. And now we're in that process where we're starting to really get going. But despite all of that and noise and kerfuffle that was going on, we did actually achieve some very good projects and very good progress there. In terms of energy, I'll come and talk about the British Geological Survey in just a moment. But if I pick on some of the other things we've done, we've upgraded a lot of schools, both in Lambeth, in London, but also in the north around Leeds in that area, as well as some leisure centres and the like there, and that's really growing very strongly. We're working with NHS Trust at Kingston, again, helping them decarbonise, bringing in LED lighting and the like as well. And again, that's going extremely well. And other key projects like Lancaster West. So Lancaster West is the estate around Grenfell Tower, the tower that sadly had the tragedy a few years ago. And basically, when it burned down, it took out the district heating system there. So the residents in the surrounding homes have struggled with their heating costs since then. We're installing air source heat pump based system that's really going to cut their bills and move them into the green transition. And that project, again, is going extremely well. In terms of water, our work with the UK water utilities is also progressing really well. We help them deliver some of their obligations on water efficiency. Control flow has also been used to unlock development in areas that are stuck in nutrient or water neutrality, including a development in Kent where our technology is being installed in 4,000 homes to unlock a development of just over 1,000 new build properties. I'll come and talk about Livenza in a moment, so I'm just going to skip it and talk about the fact that control flow has also been adopted by the country of Andorra for all its parks and gardens, basically to become more water efficient in their sprinkler systems. So as you can see, despite the issues that we've seen in H1, Actually, in terms of our business as usual, pushing on with the projects in hand, it's going pretty strongly. Turning over to James.
Thanks, Mitesh. So this slide shows the income statements for half one this year, half one last year, and in the middle you can see half two from last year as well. So in terms of revenue, whilst revenues has increased by 15% from last year to £29.9 million, growth has been a little bit lower than expected, and that's largely due to the impact of the early general election and the delayed start to projects that Mitesh just mentioned. That's had an impact on margin. So in half one this year, margins are at 21.4% compared to 34.1% last year. And that reflects the lower project margins that we've had in half one. And we expect that to come back in half two. In terms of admin expenses, notwithstanding the impact of inflation, admin expenses have increased from £8.1 million last year to £9.4 million this year. And that largely reflects the operational capability of a business to deliver the large growth that we're expecting in half two this year. And we continue to monitor that to ensure that's the right size for business. So as you can see, that resulted in an adjusted loss before tax of £3.8 million this year compared to £0.4 million last year. So this slide shows a balance sheet, and whilst there's quite a lot of information on here, what I want to talk about is the 12-month average working capital that you can see at the bottom of the first table. So as you can see, at July 23, average working capital was £17.3 million. That's reduced to £11.3 million at January 24 and £7.6 million now. And that's largely due to a reduction in our accrued income, which was £16.1 million last year and now stands at £8.1 million. So accrued income days have reduced from 136 last year to 71 this year, and that largely reflects improved processes from valuation of work right the way through to being certified and getting the cash collection. So we've done quite a lot of our work to improve our working capital on that. What I do want to stress, however, is that working capital will increase in half two this year to support the increased growth that's coming. And that results in net cash of £0.3 million July 24 compared to £0.5 million last year. So this slide shows the cash waterfall from January 24 to now. So we started the period with £1.2 million of our net cash. We then made a loss for the period, as we previously talked around. There's been some exceptional costs relating to the restructuring programme that we had at the end of our last financial year. Some asset purchases. We then repaid our bank borrowings. We then had a substantial improvement in working capital, as I've just talked around. There's been a few non-cash items, as you'd expect, a small amount of interest and tax, and we end the period with adjusted net cash of £0.3 million. The other thing I want to pull out in this slide is in terms of bank borrowings, we had a £6 million facility with HSBC, a term loan, which we took out in Feb 22. We continue to repay that. That stands at £2.7 million now, and we expect borrowing costs, borrowing repayments to be around £700,000 per quarter going forward. So as you can see, the net cash position now is broadly unchanged from a year ago. I'll hand back over to Mitesh to talk about the strategy.
Thank you. So in terms of our order book, as you can see in the graph on the right-hand side, at this time last year, it was sitting about just at 118 million. With the issue that we had last year, it dipped at the beginning of the year down to 102. And as you can see, it's come back there. So these are basically orders that are either contracted or they're secured in terms of they're going through the signature process as we speak right now. About 40% of those, or over 40% of those, will get delivered in this current year. A lot of the projects that we're starting, or we've started right now, are multi-year projects, both in terms of water and also in terms of energy as well. And these will extend through next year and beyond as well. I won't talk about the issues that we had in H1 because we covered that earlier on. But what I would say is that the higher margin projects have moved into H2. And this is part of the reason that you've seen our gross margin dip in H1 and it will come back into H2. Now, it does mean an acceleration of work. And right now, our focus is about building up that capability to deliver the work volumes which our clients want done. They need to spend their money in their financial year. So they're keen for us to get going as fast as we possibly can. And alongside that, we've got over £300 million of opportunities which we're actively pursuing. And what we mean by that is it's either in terms of energy, projects that we're talking to clients, we're doing the early surveys on, giving them pricing, etc., and having those forward. And that gestation period can take a year or more. And in terms of the water side, it's essentially working with developers or water companies and looking at what they need to deliver and designing for them strategies for achieving that. And again, those take a bit of gestation as well. So that's quite a strong pipeline of work for the BDM teams to take forward. Just to give a little bit more detail about what is our solutions actually deliver to clients. If I look on the left-hand side about energy, essentially a lot of people, I know there's a lot of noise about hydrogen, a lot of lobbying about hydrogen. The challenge is about basically the density of energy in that particular material and the challenge in actually transportation. So the likelihood is that even though hydrogen will have a specialist role in certain industrial processes, for most heating applications, it's probably going to be a transition to a heat pump based solution there. And where we've done that for clients, what you've seen is, as you can see on the left hand side, a reduction in emissions of up to 70%. One of the most effective solutions is to use a heat pump system alongside a gas boiler with the gas picking it up when it's very, very cold. What it means for residents, if you're looking at domestic households, is cutting people's energy bills by up to 45%. And that's based on basically survey data and reports written by the University of Leeds, among others as well. Similarly, among water, as I mentioned earlier, our technology, Control Flow HL 2024, it saves about 80 litres of water per household. It's about 23% of people's consumption. So as you can imagine, that's a massive saving. And we'll show you in a moment where it works and how it does so. But what it also does, and what we found, is it improves the performance of your gas boiler. So when this came out from the results from the studies, we asked Liverpool University to look into it, and they actually did a very detailed report that showed why it improves the steady performance of water, improves the performance of the gas boiler. So overall, what we were seeing is people's bills, gas and water, were dropping by about £365 a year. So we've done follow-on studies this year, and again, they're showing very similar results. And that, of course, builds client confidence in the products. So what does our technology do? Well, it's called HL 2024, not because of the year, but because it was invented by an inventor, and he had 2,024 attempts in the shed in his back of his house before he got it to go. It took him 7 years to get it to work properly. And it does a really simple thing, but it's something that's very, very difficult to achieve. If you turn on your kitchen tap tonight, turn it full on, you'll notice that the flow of water coming out is constantly fluctuating as your neighbors turn on their water, etc. Inside the house, you can see it more dramatically if somebody flushes the toilet in the house. What our technology does is it evens out those pressure fluctuations to give you the same flow coming up from your house, from the tap, etc. And it can be installed in the mains water inlet coming into the property, or you can install it in individual taps or showers, etc. By eliminating those fluctuations, you actually save that 23% of water consumption. So a really, really big benefit. And what we're doing is eliminating water wastage. And in terms of household satisfaction, we have a satisfaction rating of over 98%. So once our technology is installed, over 98% of households really like their water supply. So that's a really fantastic outcome there. So in terms of the commercial market that we can address, if I look at the left first in terms of energy, as I say, heat pump technology is where people are really going to go. So if you look at that marketplace in the areas that we work with, UK and Holland, that's a market which we estimate to be about £4 billion per annum when that transition starts to get going as it is right now. If you look on the water side, well, water is a shortage being seen everywhere right now. And you've got targets being set in both the UN and also in Europe as well. Water shortages are expected in the UK as well in the next 10, 15 years. So there's a lot of focus on water there. Again, that marketplace, very, very large, £2.4 billion per annum is what we estimate. And again, that's a pretty prudent estimate that we think right now. What's also interesting on the side of water is the UK government's target. So they want to build 1.5 million homes in the next 5 years. Inevitably, that means they're going to have to build homes in areas which are sensitive for either nitrate or water neutrality. And what that means is areas where to build a new property or a new factory or even retail developments, you have to save the same amount of water or reduce the amount of nitrates or phosphates as are going to be emitted by the new build property or the commercial building that you're putting into place. In those areas, that can be done traditionally by building wetland bogs and the like, or trying to make rainwater harvesting, etc. But what people have found in terms of Natural England, etc., is by installing our technology in existing homes, you can actually save the water that creates the headroom. And because the water coming into the property already naturally has phosphates and nitrates dissolved in it, we actually reduce those emissions as well. So it becomes a very easy way to reduce those emissions and reduce the water consumption in the area to allow the new build properties to proceed. And it's also the cheapest way of doing it. So it's both the cheapest, it's very easy to do, and for existing residents, it actually saves them up to £365 a year. And this is why places like Crawley and other places in Kent have taken up the technology to create the headroom to allow that development to go forward. So in terms of our growth strategy, that's really not changed since we came to IPO. In terms of energy, we're opening up in terms of non-domestic sector, hospitals, schools, leisure centres. We've got new contract wins coming through in the domestic sector. As I said at the beginning of the year, domestic sector is coming back, but we don't expect it to be fully back until next year. And in terms of our existing clients, again, that work is continuing there. In terms of water, we're building on demand for our water efficiency products, both in the UK and internationally. The issues I just described about water efficiency, nitrate neutrality, don't just apply in the UK. They apply in Holland, Spain, and also in India as well. So we're growing our product range, so it's got greater applications. We're also developing and expanding that offering into new areas as well, which when the time is right, I'll come back and tell you more about it. In terms of R&D, our spend is still pretty strong because, as I said, we're filling out our product applications right now. In terms of M&A, that hasn't gone away, but basically it's going to be towards the end of next year. We need to build up our cash reserves again, put that profit back in our reserves, and basically we'll come back next year towards the end and look at some of the opportunities that are out there. So I wanted to talk about a couple of examples to really try and bring it to life as to what's going on. So this is the British Geological Survey. Their headquarters is in a place called Rushcliffe, which is near Nottingham. And what you can see is our teams basically installing a ground source heat pump system, which is commercial scale. And what it does, as you can see in the middle photo, is we're drilling down about 230 meters deep. And we're putting in a slinky, which is a rubber tube, which has got a water system with an inhibitor system to prevent it freezing up. We're extracting heat from the ground, which the heat pump is concentrating, and then it's applying the radiators and underfloor heating systems and hot water in those commercial buildings. As a company, we're unique in this area in the context that our drilling team is actually in-house. We're vertically integrated in that aspect. So we've actually carried out this work for the BGS. They selected us following a tender process. It's going to save about 30 tons of carbon per year. What's interesting is that BGS have got 400 people working in the building as we've carried out the work, and they've not been affected as that system is being installed right now. BGS have filmed every part of it, and they're going to create a living case study, a living lab as they call it, so other organizations can come and see what is involved, the fact it works, the savings that are achieved. And this is part of BGS's drive to become carbon neutral by 2040. But for us, it creates a great showcase, as you can imagine, for our clients to come and see what's involved and come and see the quality of our work and what we can achieve. And we're very, really, really proud that BGS chose us. On water, I wanted to talk to you about Livenza. So Livenza basically own and operate a number of student accommodation blocks right across Spain and Portugal. And as you can imagine, the issue that they've had from residents, from students, are becoming more green. At the same time, Levenza were aware about water shortages and water stress in Spain and also wanted to reduce some of the costs. After looking at a number of technologies, they chose Control Flow HO 2024. And we basically supply the products which are being installed in 5,000 flats across 14 sites across Portugal and Spain at the moment, with more sites to come later on. Again, Levenza are very, very happy. Commercially, we're not allowed to share with you the savings that are made, but they're significant and the payback is very quick, within 12 months. And on the back of Levenza choosing the product, as you can imagine, other people in the sector are talking to us right now. So if I may, this is the final slide in terms of looking forward. So there is now greater stability and clarity, both in the UK but also in India, where again there was an election this year as well. So what it gives our clients, particularly in the public sector, but also developers as well, is greater confidence in decision making. And also it gives confidence for the next 5 years as well, which is really important. As we expected, we are going to return to profit in H2. And in terms of meeting our adjusted PBT targets, we're on course to meet that for the end of the year as per the forecasts out there. And the current contracts, as I explained earlier, are going to continue through next year and in some cases into the year after as well. So this gives us great platforms for next year and also a greater view going forward into 2027. So despite the increased working capital, which James talked about, we are going to end the year in a net cash position as well. And demand remains strong for what we do, both in terms of decarbonisation and what can, as you see in the coming months, accelerate its net zero targets, but also in terms of water efficiency and development, the UK government target of 1.5 million homes. And our solution in those nutrient and water neutrality areas is the cheapest, quickest way of unlocking development. So all of these things give us a very strong foundation of products in terms of our team, the people, and where we sit in the market to give us confidence looking forward in terms of accelerating our growth and delivering the returns for both yourselves as shareholders, but also our clients as well. So enough from James and I. So we pause right at this point and we take your questions, please.
And the first question here is, could you tell us a little bit more about the working capital movement?
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned earlier on, there's been a significant reduction in accrued income. We've done quite a lot of work internally to make sure we maximise our working capital and get efficiencies in the process, making sure things are valued a lot quicker and getting right through to cash collection. So, internally, we've done quite a lot of work looking at the end-to-end process, working with our QS team, getting valuations done a lot quicker, being a lot more proactive in getting that through. And that's resulted in a reduction in accrued income days from 136 to 71, which is quite significant over the last period. If you look at debtor days as well, they've come down slightly from this time last year as well. And we continue to find ways to work through our processes and make sure they're more efficient. So we have as little as possible tied up. Obviously, as I said, that is going to increase over the next few months as a business grows, which is expected, but we should still be in a strong position at year end.
Could you talk through your route to market? How do you source leads and what's the sales process?
Sure, very good question then. So in terms of energy, we are basically engaged with a lot of our clients through word of mouth. So we do very good work for one local authority. They tend to go and recommend us to other people as well. We also sit on a number of frameworks as well. So in terms of appointing us directly or through a short competition, it's easy for our clients to do that. And the other side of it is also the old-fashioned way of marketing it out, going to conferences, events, and essentially talking to people through LinkedIn and the like, reaching out, explaining what we do. So there is a lot of legwork, a lot of use of e-marketing, but also a lot of word of mouth. And we find word of mouth is really the most successful in the world of energy. In terms of water, we do two or three things. Again, it's word of mouth. People hear about us. There are various studies that have been written about the product. And again, that attracts people to come and talk to us there. Again, local authorities that are having problems with development, we're going to look at other local authorities and ask, what are they doing? And we do sponsor events and the like. And we also do a lot of work in terms of e-marketing with specialist publications, in terms of webs, etc., just to drive and make sure there's greater awareness. What really makes water exciting for people and for us is basically it's a really simple solution. And because people, where we're fitting in, like the product, again, after a short trial, people really adopt it and you see growth in terms of follow-on orders, etc. Internationally, we work in a very similar way as well. But in India, we target certain states because as a country, it's very, very big, and we sort of dilute our effort. We try to do everything everywhere. And in terms of Spain and Holland, again, a very similar approach.
Is it possible to change the business model so you don't experience these types of project delays at the next election, or at least reduce the impact on the business?
So we're doing basically three things in this space there. As a company, we're growing, so we have a larger portfolio of projects. If there's issues around that, then there's a lot more stability there and the impact is much less. The second side of it is the focus on growth on water. And that's really growing very quickly, and we'll be showing that data in due course, etc. But again, that gives us greater stability. And the third side of it is our international growth there. So at the moment, internationally, it's nascent growth, but we expect to make that grow much faster. And as it does so, again, we're looking to create that stability there. But as a small company, at this point last year, with some key clients, etc., it did hit us very hard. It's one of the things we're trying to make sure we don't have that same impact again. Although fortunately, hopefully, with stability for the next 5 years.
And who are your main competitors? Are they large organisations?
In terms of energy, really we compete and people like, as I saw previously, both regional contractors, but also large companies like Vital or Veolia as well. Then in terms of water, the main competitor is another product, which are rubber-based products there, which are much cheaper than our technology. But in terms of performance, they're not as good. So their fluctuation in terms of pressure fluctuation, ours is less than 2%, theirs tends to be more than 10%, and their lifetime is a lot less. So those are the sort of competitors that we see at the moment.
And how do you see yourselves impacted by EU politics? The questioner says that there's a paper to be published on heat pumps, but it's still not been published by the EU Parliament. Do you think the general growth trend for net zero is more significant than the hiatus around the political agendas?
It's a very good question. The thing is, I think it is, because basically, I think as people can see, the climate is beginning to change. The scientists forecast storms, they're coming through. The issues that you're seeing on drought right across Europe are quite worrying, I think, for regulators and politicians. I don't think it's really cut through in terms of political consciousness just yet, but it will do in due course. And you're talking about water levels dropping even in places like Holland, Germany, France, which is not areas you'd expect. So even in those areas, people are getting worried and saying, actually, things are going on. The EU paper is delayed, which is unfortunate. And there is sort of, at the moment, there has been confusion in Holland where we operated the like. But if you look at the trend, really, there is no other option but to cut emissions. And I think there's a strong body of opinion now saying that actually it's better to take action now. Where we sit on slightly different to other green groups is we still see an opportunity for gas in terms of where you're looking at particularly air source heat pumps in wintertime, then retaining gas actually is beneficial because it makes sure people's bills drop and you still save a massive amount of carbon, 60% reduction rather than 80. But what it means, it's a lot easier transition. So that's perhaps one thing which we differ perhaps from other people. But that's simply because of where we come from. We're a technology agnostic company. But our growth is really driven by the need to address climate change.
And do you envisage any tie-ups with energy providers for consumer rollout in due course?
Well, we work with some energy providers already there in terms of delivering for them certain programs they have to deliver in terms of making homes energy efficient, etc. So we already do work in that context there. In terms of a bigger, more general tie-up, um, I'm not sure yet, to be honest, because our growth is really quite specialist in blocks of flats in terms of commercial buildings and the like there. And our target customer base has really been in terms of the building owners in that context. So right now, I don't really see that tie-up coming. But again, in the future, things may change, but we don't see that just yet.
And isn't doing business in India more risky than developing opportunities in Europe? You've got FX risk and maybe transparency risks.
It is a good question and something we do need to watch. So India was set up basically by us as a way of dealing with R&D costs and some of the engineering costs that we have. So as you may know, in the UK, there's a real shortage of trained, experienced M&E engineers, and that cost has been rising at the moment. So that's an issue that we have. So the way we've offset that is by using an engineering hub out of India, which we've created and recruited into. The R&D work we've been doing in terms of water products was seen by local clients there, who actually asked us to go and offer the product and use the product to help them deal with local issues. And that's really how India has grown. So there are issues with FX and transparency. We are very careful. We maintain very strong rules and the like there. But again, we can see that opportunity and you can see that demand. And for them, it's a very exciting opportunity to deal particularly with water issues. So India, as you know, as you may know, has got water stress to the point where in terms of new development, they're asking them to become water positive. So essentially not just saving water to match the water used by the new properties, but actually saving more water than they're actually going to use to try and overall reduce that pressure. So again, our technology creates a great opportunity for them.
And can you talk a little bit about margins? Installation companies tend to have high gross margins, but your gross margins have reduced. Can you explain what's the main cost driving the margins down?
Sure, it is, as James explained, basically project mix. So on some projects using our technology, we can achieve very, very strong margins. On other situations on properties, which are more, if I use the phrase, sort of bog standard transition into heat pump technology, our margins are less. So it is really driven by the type of projects that we're doing. Again, we've got water coming through, which is very strong margins. And this is part of the reason why in H2, our margins have improved. And overall, our margins can come back to where we're expecting them to be.
Can you elaborate on the order book and what you're seeing to give you confidence that more than 40% is anticipated to be delivered this year?
Sure, it's basically driven by what our clients need to go and spend. So a lot of our local authority clients have annual budgets and they want to spend the money basically before the end of March. So we need to get that going. We're right now recruiting in, particularly in terms of the water side, in terms of plumbing teams, to go and deliver some of the products that they need to get done and delivered. But these works basically are going to go on into next year and also for, particularly on the energy side, into the year after as well. So this is what we're really seeing right now. So after a delay and a hiatus, as I say, in the first part of the year, where the work was done, but the new projects couldn't get started, since the sort of middle of September onwards, we've really got going, and that's really going to drive through all the way going forward now.
And how challenging logistically is the accelerated delivery in half two?
It is a challenge. We do have to go and mobilize and get that capability into place, make sure the work is done correctly there. But it's something that, we've done previously. So it gives us confidence too. But, no beating around the bush. There is a challenge. We just got to make sure that we get it delivered. And that's where my teams and my directors are really focused on that operational delivery.
And can you outline your M&A strategy? What companies are you looking to acquire and how those companies strengthen the core business and how you think about valuation or the multiples you're looking to pay?
Sure. So, let's say in terms of right now, we're not looking at any companies at the moment. Our focus is basically building up our cash position. But we'll come back into M&A next year, probably at the end of the year. The sort of companies we're looking at is companies that either will allow us to enter into a related market. An example of that is the company we acquired, Matthewson's, that allowed us to enter the NHS sector, or it's about entering into a new geographic sector, as we did with Friend. So it's those sort of companies that we look at. We're also looking at companies that are predominantly small, so we can manage the culture, bring it in, and we can get that going and sort of incorporate it well. We're not looking at companies that have got broken wings, because trying to do a turnaround needs a different sort of team than we've got. So we're not in that space there. We're interested more in companies that are doing well. Perhaps the owner has sort of constrained it in terms of growth to something that he or she can manage. But us coming in, we can actually unlock those sort of restrictions and really get it to go. And again, an example of that is a company that we acquired called Welltherm, which is our drilling company, which in terms of from the point of acquisition to this year is sort of tripled, hasn't it? So that sort of growth has been achieved, but basically unlocking the previous constraints, which are really around the main person wanting to be able to control it, not let it grow too big. Putting in our systems and our approach allows that to really grow and achieve its full potential.
And you flagged greater clarity of direction and speed on decision making. Is that mainly in the UK, or are you seeing opportunities in other countries?
It's actually both in the UK and India as well. Now the election is complete. So there's a lot of work going on in India. It's a confirmation of their water directive, particularly in terms of what they want to go and achieve. In the UK, the main clarity point is around dealing with this issue around this company is committed to investing and growing, which when it first came in its early statements suggested it was going back to some sort of austerity program, which in the past has hit our local authority clients very hard. So that had made them hesitate. But the recent language has really made people a lot more confident. And also in terms of the nutrient neutrality, water neutrality piece, where again, the government issued that consultation, which didn't actually say they were going to change that or remove the obligation. It simply said developers could do it as they were building properties. But because it wasn't super clear around the mitigation strategies, it again made a lot of our clients hesitate. And until there was a sort of a letter exchange confirming that actually mitigation is completely allowed and the government had no issues with it, it made people hesitate.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm afraid we've run out of time for any more questions. Mitesh, do you have any closing remarks?
So again, can I just say thank you for your time this morning to join us and to show you where we're going. We are on a very exciting journey, and despite the road bumps that we've seen last year, beginning of this year, you'll see a very strong performance from us in H2 and going forward. But again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.